Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. This is Tania Gustafson here, your nutritionist, fitness coach, speaker, podcast host, here coming to you live from my little home office. Welcome to Live Fit. So today, I was having a conversation with somebody on Instagram the other day regarding sugar. And so I thought, what a great topic to bring up. Easter's coming up. Everybody's got littles. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people have kids that are going to be wanting to dive into those treats. A lot of parents are going to be wanting to dive into those treats and chocolate. And some people, for them, it's a part of life already. And as for some people, it's actually become addictive. So I'm jumping ahead of myself here. Let's start off with what exactly is sugar? What counts as sugar? When you're consuming food. Okay, because there's obviously your white table sugar, the sugar cubes or the granules that people put in their coffee, tea, whatever, used for baking. There's your brown sugar, the demerara sugar. There's all the different forms of sugar, which also includes honey and agave, maple syrup. And then you have your coconut palm sugar. And then you have artificial sweeteners as well. So aspartame, NutraSweet, sucralose, anything with the OSE on the end, is added in. Fructose actually comes from fruit, but if you're seeing high fructose corn syrup, bad deal. Another something that's chemically made, added to food, using corn. And so we don't want to be using any of that. It just spikes your blood sugar. And we're going to get to that too. So there's obviously all your sugars, sugar sweeteners. And then there's the food that you eat that turns to sugar. And people don't quite understand that. So carbohydrates, that's the C word, the carb word, right? That 4-letter C word, carb. People are doing lots and lots of diets out there where I'm eliminating carbs, I'm getting rid of them. Well, if you're thinking about the things that turn to sugar, that's great. And we're going to talk about those ones. If you're thinking about all of them across the board, do you understand that carbohydrates are also included in that category are your fruits and vegetables? Okay. So if you get rid of those, just a little something to think about as we're talking about this. If you get rid of those, where do you get your vitamins, your minerals, your phytonutrients from? You're going to have to be heavily supplementing. And with those diets, I'm just going off on a small tangent here. With those diets, usually, come along with, well, you can eat the bacon, but you can't eat the blueberry. Now think to yourself, does that actually make logical sense? Okay. Not in my mind, it doesn't. So back to the foods that make, that are considered sugar or that turn to sugar. So those processed, so your breads, your pastas, crackers, cookies, chips. Think about this. Anything in a package, a box, a bag, a can, a wrapper, those are all carbohydrates. Okay, they're all highly processed. Lots of fast food, even though you're getting some protein in there if you're ordering a burger or something, there's still a lot of processing that goes along with it. And so a lot of what you're eating is spiking your blood sugar, or it's adding a whole lot of chemicals that aren't that healthy. So thinking about alcohol, also something spikes your blood sugar. It turns to sugar when it goes into your body. If there's nothing there to temper it, if there's nothing there to counteract that sugar spike, it essentially turns to sugar. And what happens? We know, people, if you've been following me, what happens when your blood sugar spikes? Right? It goes up here and it stores fat right here. Right around this midsection here. I'm sorry, I'm a little short. You probably can't see my midsection. But in our body's infinite wisdom, years ago when we were hunter-gatherers, when we had to run from, the mountain lion, or we had maybe neighboring tribes attacking us or something, our body, that fat and that sugar was really rare for us to get a hold of. And when our body did get some, it hung on to it because we might need it for that future escape, when we're being under attack and we need that extra energy and go. Face it, people, when you walk out your front door, there's not a mountain lion there to chase you. Your neighbors are not throwing spears at you. We live in a very peaceful society. We are very blessed here in Canada and most of the countries around the world. That is not an issue when you run outside, right? But what our body still does with that is when it holds on to those extra bits of sugar and that turns to fat, it puts it right around the middle here. Why? Protecting all your vital organs, protecting. That's good in a small dose if you're going to burn it off. Not good if it's going to sit there and then collect and collect, and you get the muffin top, you get, the guys get the basketball belly kind of thing like this, the beer belly, sometimes it's called. When it starts to get really hard, doesn't move. Yeah, that's a whole lot of visceral fat packed around your organs. Most of it caused by things like sugar directly, things that turn to sugar, imbalancing of eating, or just, poor food habits altogether. Sometimes it's a combination of all of them. But today we're talking about sugar and, what we can do about that. So, people say, well, oh my gosh, how can I give that up? I just can't, go cold turkey and not have any sugar. That is one way some people do it. That is the way that some people say that that's the only way they can do it. They're kind of an all or nothing person, And to those people, and sometimes they fall off and they get back on and they have a hard time with that, because an addiction is just that thing. It's an addiction, the definition of which means, you need help. It's really hard to get rid of. It's not something that you can just brush off super easily, because there are physiological effects from that make your body crave and then go above and beyond what you want to do and force you from the inside out, to go and then indulge in that, right? So sugar has been proven to be more addictive than things like heroin and cocaine. If anyone's ever seen people that are detoxifying from drugs, they're detoxing drugs and they're trying to get off drugs, they generally go for a lot of sugary foods, because their brain is still seeking that pleasure, that same effects that they were getting from the drugs, and replacing it with sugar. And so it's still kind of doing the same thing. It doesn't have the death effects, the immediate death effects as an overdose or something like that, but it's still, as a long-term, it's really not so good, and we need to sort of back those off. Now, years ago, I remember looking this up. I was thinking, well, there's always a recommended daily allowance for your vitamin C, for, how much fat you should have a day, or how much protein, or how much water you should drink, right? So I looked it up quite several years ago now. I looked it up. What's the recommended daily allowance for sugar? And there wasn't one. Interesting how that was, right? Recently, though, things have been added, and I think it's to appease the public. And it was saying that for women, 6 teaspoons a day max, and men, they should be within around 9 teaspoons. And so I'm taking that, giving the benefit of the doubt, I'm taking that as it's not a recommended that you must have this. It's more like you shouldn't go over this line, right? And that's really not hard to get that in. If you're having, 2-3 cups of coffee a day and you're putting a teaspoon or so of sugar in there, well, that's going to be most of it right there. So thinking about that. If anyone drinks soda out there, I have a good friend who had ditched soda last year, and then she's kind of had, drinking a couple lately, and but she's thinking, no, that's not a good idea. I'm not feeling good. I need to get back off of that again. And so your can of Coke has about 10 teaspoons of sugar in there. So for those of you out there who want to know what your food has in it, how many teaspoons, because it doesn't list it in teaspoons, right? It gives us these grams, and most people have no idea how much that is in the real world. It's like, I don't know. I was at an event. We used to host international students, and I was at an event, and it was a barbecue a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago. And, it was kind of an outdoor thing. Everyone was sitting on the grass and stuff. And this little boy, he had this orange juice. It was kind of like, it was a hot dogs, and it wasn't a healthy thing. It was a hot dogs and pop or juice and whatever. So this little boy, he had his, he went up and he got his hot dog and he got his juice. And he's looking at it. And I was actually impressed that he was reading the label. He's maybe about 10 or something. He's reading the label, and then he looks at his mom and he says, "Mom, is 21 grams of sugar a lot?" And she said, "Oh, no, it's fine. Go ahead." So he drinks it, right? And I was just sitting there going, oh my goodness, because I knew the teaspoon translation. So if you divide the number of grams on whatever item it is you're looking at, divide by 4, okay, because there's 4 grams of sugar in every teaspoon, you're going to get the teaspoon equivalent of how much sugar you're consuming, okay? So now I know that might be a shocker for some people, right? If you take a look at your kids' breakfast cereal, take a look at even the healthy, I would say, quote unquote, cereals that you might have in your cupboard. What about, those juices, those juice boxes and those little chocolate milks typically have about 6 to 7 teaspoons of sugar, sometimes 8, depending on what they are, in those containers. And if your kids are having 1, 2, 3, several a day, think about how much sugar they're having, So that's just another thing. And as far as the kids go, studies years ago that I read when my kids were small, most of you know my kids are grown up, they're all adults, they're wonderful humans. When they were little wonderful humans, I stopped buying the juice, and my daughter had an issue with her stomach. And so taking out all that, anything that was sugary or whatever was not good. So we put in lots of water and took that out. But I remember reading a study about kids being super picky, and all the constant with that, all the kids that were super picky also drank a lot of juice. And what they concluded from that study was that, the kids are feeling a little bit hungry. They might grab a juice box instead because it has a flavor, right? Water doesn't really have a flavor if you're so used to having something that is flavored. So they would grab a juice or a chocolate milk or something like that. And then when dinner came or the lunch came or a meal came, they were feeling a little bit more full because they'd had something with flavor, and they'd filled up their little tummies with this liquid, and it wasn't all gone through yet. And so then they would pick and choose, and they would eat the things off their plate that were their favorites first and leave the rest, because by that time now they're feeling full, right? So if we can back that off of our kids and replace that with water, so take your kids out, let them buy, a fancy water bottle. Besides, you're only going to buy 1, maybe 2 a year, maybe 3 if your kid loses one, but you're not going to buy all those flats of juice boxes, right? So you're going to save some money there. You're not going to buy the frozen things of orange juice or whatever maybe if your family really loves that, maybe reserve it for like a Saturday. You're making pancakes, something special, do it all together. It's all done in once and then it's gone, as opposed to having a continual stream of it every single day. So back to that kid with that orange juice. Now, I don't know how many juice boxes he'd already had that day. This was a bottle of juice. So that 21 grams of sugar divided by 4 is just over 5 teaspoons of sugar. But I bet if his mother had known, and gave him a glass of water or gave him something homemade, there's no way she would allow him to put 7 spoons or 5 spoons of sugar into his cup, as would, no responsible adult would let their kids do that, right? They might let them sprinkle 1 little teaspoon of brown sugar on their oatmeal or something like that, but they're certainly not going to let them put in spoon after spoon after spoon and then consume it and then do it again later in the day, right? And so when we know the numbers and we know how to figure this out, we can then make better choices, and then we can explain to our kids or our spouse or whoever why we're doing it. Okay, so there's a little education on the numbers. We talked about what sugars are. Breads, anything that's processed will turn to sugar when you eat it, plus all the regular sugars, plus your liquid drippy things like the honey, corn syrup, maple syrup, agave, any of those, right? If I missed one, sorry, but you get what I'm saying, right? So all of those are also considered sugar. They do spike your blood sugar. But there's some that have a lower GI index than others. So GI is your level of sugar that goes up, okay? Makes it go up. How fast does it make it go up? So the higher the number, the bigger the sugar spike, which means the farther out of balance you get, which means the more fat your body is going to store. So to try and get off of sugar, or if you're using a little bit for your baking and stuff like that, switching down to like a coconut palm sugar in your coffee. So I did that with my husband. Stevia is awesome. Monk fruit is awesome. They have a 0 glycemic index. They're like 0, and they're made from plants. They're not a chemically derived thing like aspartame and NutraSweet and sucralose and Sweet and Low and all those kinds of things. They are naturally sourced from a plant, but they're a healthier alternative to sugar, basically. So you still get the sweet. You don't have to use as much. Stevia comes also in drops. You can use little drops. The true from the ground up leaves are actually green. It's a green powder. It looks a lot like matcha tea. If you drink that, you'll recognize what I'm talking about. You can also get it in white powdery, so it kind of looks like sugar, and then it kind of plays a mental game, right? So you're choosing something a little bit better than something that's going to spike your blood sugar. And it's also not a chemical base. So you want to still watch and read labels of if there's anything mixed with that you're buying, because some of these other companies that make the chemical sugars are now doing combinations with stevia. They're doing a stevia combination. I saw one the other day. It's a Splenda stevia combination. So a whole bunch of chemical crap that we made, plus a little bit of stevia, and now they're calling it a stevia blend. Okay. Stevia is more expensive than the other stuff. That's why they're doing it, but now they can still label it with stevia. There's a lot of products out there the same way. You think, oh, it says sweetened with stevia. Flip it over and read it. Okay. Flip it over and read it. Because especially for people, if you're buying your protein shakes and things like that, a lot of times it'll say it on the front, but you flip it over and it has a small little bit of stevia in there, but the rest is an aspartame or a sucralose, okay, which are not serving you. You're just putting extra chemicals in your body. Not a good thing. So, you do get what you pay for. You do need to read some labels still, because labeling is still a big issue in North America, and that we know. If you've been following me, or if you've been following anybody in health, you know that labeling is a clear and present danger almost. They're not really telling you all of what's in the food, or they're telling you what it is, but in a way that most people don't understand what it is, unless you're getting out you're at the grocery store and you're kind of Google searching ingredients as you're standing there in the aisle, and most people aren't going to do that. So yeah, so we've covered that. I've got my little list here. So the balance, right? The balance. So when your blood sugar is unstable, knocked out of balance, we talked about that. It goes up here, it stores fat, right? Sugar will do that. And so will the processed foods do that. And the carbs will do that. Even the healthy carbs will do that if we're eating them on their own. So we want to, and I'm not saying here, people, I just want to back up for a second. I'm not saying you can never have sugar again, or you can never have sweets again, or you can never have, a piece of bread or your glass of wine or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you understand what's in your food and you realize how much sugar you're actually consuming, you can then make those conscious choices to dial it back and create more health in your body. Because I can tell you right now, if you're having trouble with focus and concentration, or your child, or anything to do with joint pain or muscle issues, fatigue, not sleeping well, irritability, mood swings, depression, things like that, gut issues, there is a lot to be said for removing artificial sweeteners, and letting the body kind of detox from that, and then seeing how you feel. So if you're like, well, oh my goodness, I'm going to get a headache if I stop this right away. Yeah, you probably will if you do a cold turkey. So what I suggest then is think about a 1% rule. Okay, I'm going to do 1% better tomorrow than I did today. So my sister, for example, okay, she used to have several spoons of sugar in her tea every day, and she drinks tea, like several large cups of tea every day. So that's a lot of sugar. I mean, it's exponential. It's crazy. It just, makes me shake my head. It's crazy. However, over the last, long while, probably a year or so, and I didn't know she had started this, but she had started doing, 1 spoon less in her tea. Then she'd go down another spoon less in her tea. So now she's down to, instead of, I think, the 4 or 5 that she was having in there, she's down to, 1 or 2. So you think, oh my gosh, 4 or 5, that's a lot. I know that's a lot, but, and she's still having it every day, but she's having, quite a bit less, right? So now we can make better choices. So now if you're having that treat every once in a while or whatever, you're having small bits where there's increased sugar, and not increased sugar all day and then a massive increase when you do have a treat. Okay, so it's all relative. Of course, it's never recommended to have any. Like I said, years ago, there was no recommended daily allowance for sugar, because we do get sugar in our fruits and vegetables. We do. There is some in there. We don't actually need any more. Ancestors lived and survived and thrived without having candy, without having sugars, without having all those things. And, we do like them. And so save them for those special occasions. You're going to enjoy them more, and you're going to feel a lot better. You'll get rid of that midriff bulge, the muffin top thing. Just for a little FYI here. Okay, I've got another friend a couple of years back. His wife, they decided, no, we're drinking way too much pop, or her husband was drinking way too much pop. So she said, nope, that's it. I'm not buying it anymore. We're not having any more. You're done. End of story. No more pop. Just from pulling out the pop. So it wasn't even like sugar specifically, although, pop has a lot of sugar. We know that the sodas are full of it. So not even saying we're getting rid of sugar altogether and emptying my entire house. They started with one thing, and they pulled out the soda. Just from pulling out the soda, her husband lost 18 pounds in a month. It goes to show you exactly what's happening with his blood sugar going out of whack and storing. Now, thinking about that also from, an extended health perspective, because we know that health or lack thereof is achieved by the things that we do, small things consistently over time, right? Anything that we do, business, relationships, finances, whatever, those small things we do consistently over time yield huge results on the end when we stick to it. And we can put that in a good light, or we can put that in oh boy, I've been doing this really bad habit for a long time, right? Now I need to roll it back and it's a little bit difficult. So they started with the one thing and they pulled it out. And that's, he got a huge result just from that. So that was quite amazing. So now thinking about the long-term things of that, for people that are ingesting a lot of sugar or items that turn to sugar in your body, there's the at risk for diabetes. There's for the heart disease, for the stroke, for the high cholesterol, high blood pressure, hypertension, all those kinds of things that come from that extra bit that's been packed onto the middle over time again, right? Also, most people don't realize that over the last 10, 12 at least now years, doctors have been calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. So by keeping your body in an elevated state of, keeping your blood sugar up or not stable, having lots of sugars, keeping things up here, you are putting yourself at risk for things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all those kinds of things that are neurological. And so, it's really hard to say definitively this, that, or the other thing with us, like, oh, you're having this amount of sugar, so that's going to happen to you. We can't say that because we all know that our bodies are all different. Everyone's got some different DNA makeup. Everyone's got different size to their body. Everyone has different amounts of tolerance to things, and the way your body is going to filter, how much it can handle to filter based on all the other foods and drinks that you consume, right? Maybe all your stress level that comes in it as well, prior or current health conditions that, or pre-existing things that you don't even know about maybe inside your body. So there's all these different things that we need to consider when thinking about our health. But everybody will see a benefit when you roll back the sugar, when you remove that from your daily, as much as possible, and then put something else in its place. Okay. Because it doesn't work so well just to tell people, stop doing that, right? Think about quitting smoking. What do they give to people? They give them the Nicorette gum, or they'll give them a patch where it kind of weans them off, or someone will go to hypnosis and have, the word triggers or something. They have something that replaced what they were doing. Okay. So in order to replace what you're doing with the sweets, well, what can we replace it with to give you that sweet flavor? Well, like I said, if you want to just, switch one for one, you can switch things and use like stevia or monk fruit. So that's a quick one to get started with. And then to back things off to help, get things out of your system and taking less and less in, switch things up for maybe fruits instead of a sugary snack. Try maybe a healthy protein bar instead of the chocolate bar. Try maybe, having a good smoothie at home to take with you instead of doing the Frappuccino at Starbucks. Trying to make homemade ice cream using a banana base, right? A nice cream. Check it out on YouTube. It's all over the place. You can even check it out in my 8 Weeks is All It Takes Facebook group. I've posted a few in there lately. So yeah, you guys can join that actually, by the way. 8 weeks is all it takes. 8, like the digit. 8 weeks is all it takes. And things like that. You can make your own. And then when you do go out and you have those one-off kind of treats, you plan them. And you know what a lot of people find is when their palate is super clean and they've gotten rid of all or most of the processed things and the sugars and all that kind of stuff, they find that the fruits and vegetables just taste so much better. It has so much flavor, and they're not missing the other stuff. That's the thing. When you put your body in balance and then you find those healthier replacements that taste good, that you really love, then you're not missing anything. And I know for myself, I attended my friend's wedding about 6 years ago. And I was like, yep, I'm going to save my off plan for the wedding cake. It was wedding cupcakes, actually. And there was the chocolate and the vanilla. And so, I never eat that kind of stuff. And they looked really delicious. And I was kind of looking forward to it because I I just don't have that in my house. I don't crave it. But every once in a while, at a wedding, that's a great excuse that I'm going to go off plan. So I decided, I'm going to go off my plan. I'm going to try those things. And I did. And I was extremely disappointed. It wasn't even that good. So I kind of wasted my off plan on that. And so I just don't know if it's something that I just don't really prefer or like anymore, or if it just was, the baker wasn't that great. I can't even really say, but just letting you know out there that just because you make some changes doesn't mean that you can never have something, right? What you're doing is you're putting good things in place to create the foundations of good health using food, right? Food is our foundation. I always talk about that. Your body is your vehicle that drives you through life. We always talk about that. And I love Jim Rohn's quote. It's on my website. It's right there. If you don't take care of your body, where will you live, right? So think about that. You are sweet enough, people. So we talked about sugar today. There aren't really any benefits to eating sugar. There sure are a lot of benefits to ditching sugar, replacing it with a healthy alternative like stevia or monk fruit, maybe a little bit of coconut palm sugar instead of your brown sugar. That one has a lower glycemic index than your regular table sugar. Still a sugar though, so bear that in mind. But making some healthier changes and just eating less of it, less often, however you want to do that. And then putting in some things that you have found that are really good. And if you found some great recipes that you like, that, satisfy your sweet tooth and that keep you from being addicted to those nasties out there, please do share it with us, because there's so many people out there that we want to share all the good stuff, and we want to let everyone succeed and win with their health. Okay. So thanks a lot for joining me today, you guys. Come back here next Monday. Same time, same station here. And join me. I'm Tania Gustafson, your nutritionist and fitness coach. Join me on Live Fit again next Monday. Have a great week.